You are being recorded.
All right, good morning. First, I would like to welcome all of us to the 2018 School of Health Professions Faculty Collaboration Forum. For those of you joining us from other areas of the KU Med Center, and I can see Dr. Chadi, I see Dr. Talal, Ken, and Tom. I see quite a good number of people from outside of our school joining us. We are glad that you have decided to join us, and thank you for doing that, and welcome. While we're always looking for ways to collaborate across the university, we also realize that we have 8 unique departments, and we can always improve upon finding opportunities to work together within our school. Hence the collaboration forum every year. Today we are fortunate, very fortunate, to begin our forum with a dynamic keynote speaker. Mr. Tim?
Hello.
Yeah, no pressure.
I'll leave the introduction of Mr. Cowden to Dr. Jeff Radell. Good luck with that. But after Mr. Cowden's address, our own SHP faculty will facilitate discussions and share their experiences surrounding team building and dissolving boundaries in order to successfully collaborate. Without further delay, I would like to introduce Dr. Jeff Radell, Associate Dean for Academic and Student Affairs, who would lead us through the first section of today's forum. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ann, for the nicely prepared notes. Where are you? Thank you. So, welcome.
Thank you.
This is Mr. Tim Cowden. He's the president and CEO of the Kansas City Area Development Council. Many of you are probably familiar, just by living in the city, about the KCADC, but let me sort of summarize a bit. This team works in partnership with civic and business leadership to enhance economic development by attracting new corporate entities to our region. And that region spans 18 counties in 2 states. So Mr. Cowden leads the strategic direction and vision of the KCADC, from day-to-day operations to fostering the relations among investors and their clients. Mr. Cowden has more than 25 years of experience in economic development, including senior positions in Texas, in Utah, and in Kansas City. He's been part of the KCADC since 1998. The KCADC team has assisted large corporations in successfully expanding or relocating into the Kansas City area, and these include a number of companies and corporations that may be familiar to you. Thank you for the list, Ann, because it goes on and on. But Amazon, Auto Alert, Aviation Technical Services, CVS Pharmacy, Excel Industries, Farmers Insurance, FedEx Ground, Kubota Tractor, Mars Chocolate North America, My Sidewalk, NetSmart Technologies, Sedgwick, Spectrum Brands, The Nerdery, that's my favorite, TriWest Healthcare Alliance Corporation, Virgin Mobile US, and Walmart. The challenges faced by the KCADC in coordinating efforts by these separate entities, in dissolving boundaries, enhancing collaborative opportunities, and attracting a motivated and diverse workforce are similar to those faced by the faculty of our school. Mr. Cowden has agreed to share his insights and experiences and observations to aid our goal in developing collaborative relations in this academic medical center setting. We have 2 charges for you, the audience, today. The first is, as you listen to this morning's keynote talk, please consider these points as they apply to your own experience and how you may expand and improve upon those personal experiences from the perspective of your individual role in the workplace, your roles within the department, your roles within the school, and across campus more broadly. During the keynote talk, you'll notice on the back monitors a URL. You're welcome to navigate to that URL and post questions, comments, and insights of your own as the keynote goes on. We'll collect those at the end of the keynote and use them as our Q&A, we hope, deemed. because that's Dean's helping today, a lot. All right, the second charge is after Mr. Cowden's keynote address, the School of Health Professions faculty will debrief with our School of Health Professions colleagues in separate small groups. You've been assigned to one of those groups. If you don't know your assignment, or if you in fact have not been assigned to one of those groups, please speak with Ann or with myself and we'll direct you. With that, we are grateful to have you today, Mr. Cowden. We look forward to what you have to say. Please join me in extending a warm welcome.
Thank you very much. So I like to walk around and engage and collaborate with you. So I would ask that at any time during this presentation, if you have questions, observations, suggestions, just stop and throw them out there. So I love when you get into a big room and the first cell phone goes off. Because I did just what the rest of you did, looked at my phone, make sure mine's off. I gotta say a couple of things before I get started. First off, I'm a big customer of yours. So earlier this year, I had my thumb repaired. So I was in getting all the physical therapy on my thumb. And then just last week, a week ago, I had meniscus surgery. So I'm still walking around and I feel great. And two of my kids have gone through audiology and all of that through the years. So it's good to be back. I appreciate everything that you've done for me and my family. So let me ask you this. Tell me the groups that you're seated with. Are you seated with the groups that you work with? Or did you all mix up a little bit this morning? You mix it up? That's awesome. See, you're already collaborating. That's pretty good. So I appreciate the Dean having me here. I appreciate Dean getting me set up. I don't know where Dean went. Jeff, there he is. That Dean, and then we had other Dean over here, and then we have Jeff. And Charlie and I go back quite a ways, so it's good to see Charlie this morning. As Jeff introduced, I represent a group called the Kansas City Area Development Council. And I've been in Kansas City now almost 20 years to the day. And I'm going to share some anecdotes about my experience getting here, what we've done, what we're doing, how this all relates to this wonderful product that is represented on the screen, Kansas City. Because right now, all of us who are Kansas Cityans, and I'm talking big Kansas City, and I'll explain that a little bit more as we go, but big Kansas City, the region, this is a great time to be in Kansas City doing what we're doing. Would you not agree? I mean, this is just a golden period to be in Kansas City. And the health system here is obviously a big part of that. And we're partners with you all at a number of levels, just not personally, but throughout the organization. So 20 years ago, I was considering whether or not to take this job in Kansas City. Not the job I have today, because I've been CEO about 3 years, but joining this organization. And anybody remember Starker's Reserve? Remember that restaurant on the bottom? Yeah. Okay. Well, that's where they took me for my interview on the plaza. It was, a beautiful spring day. This was in May. And I remember talking to the gentleman who I would eventually replace because he was moving on. He went and ran the Kansas Speedway. Great guy. And he told me, I was in Utah at the time, and he told me, you know what, Tim? We represent 2 states. So when I have a company that comes in, I present 2 sets of incentives, 2 business cases, Missouri and Kansas. We've got 18 counties in 50 plus communities that all have their own self-interest in mind. I mean, we have to be selfish about what we do. So each of those communities in the states, but they all come together under this one umbrella on behalf of who? The customer. Because our customer is someone, a person, a family, a C-level executive, a physician, whoever it is that's evaluating our product against all these others. So when you talk about collaboration, and that was really daunting for me. When I heard that, because I was in Salt Lake at the time, 20 years younger, just getting my career going, I thought, oh my gosh, I have to represent 2 states, all these communities, urban, suburban, rural. How does that work? And you can really apply that to what you all do every day, because you think about this health system, just not your school, but this health system, and how you all take that message out to your customer base, work with them, making sure that you're taking care of your business, but fitting in this tapestry, if you will, that makes up the health system, and again, not even talking about your school. It's pretty amazing. So that was 20 years ago. And a lot has happened in 20 years in Kansas City, and I've been really fortunate to be along for the ride. But you look at that screen before I move on. What does that say to you? Anything at all? Just it's going to be as interactive as possible. You look at that screen, what does that say? Awesome. That's a great start on a Friday. It's awesome. What else do you see about that?
Art, coffee, food, baseball.
Baseball, right? All that. You see interaction. You see one specific reference to Missouri on there, don't you? KCMO, because we know KCMO is, the big city within this region, but all the rest there is KC. So this was really cool. 2 nights ago, I was in New York. So we took the best of Kansas City to New York, and we hosted about 120 media clients that are interested in, one, writing about Kansas City as a destination, writing about Kansas City as a place to put their business. And not once did we talk about Kansas City, Missouri, or Kansas City, Kansas, or Lenexa, or Lee Summit. It was all Kansas City, because that's all they know. That's all they know. So when you talk about the power of a brand, we'll get into that a little bit later too. You talk about the power of a brand. That brand is really, really powerful. KC. Just coming back yesterday, flying through Newark and then Midway, I counted 7 people wearing shirts, not Royals, not Chiefs, wearing just the KC. You see those hats around the Charlie Hustle, the KC? There's a tremendous amount of pride right now that we have in this overall region, not just one community or one state. It's everything. So how does that happen? That's a pretty interesting story that we'll get into. A little bit more about my group. So consider us the umbrella organization for economic development in the region. I'll get in the communities for a little bit. But when you start talking about silos, I've got a team of 25. And we have, you can see, Kansas City Smartport. That organization was created about 18 years ago to focus on building the freight-based economy in Kansas City, because we all know that this is a terrific place to put a logistics-based business. When you look back at the history of Kansas City is here in large part because we're moving people and then cattle and all sorts of goods and services through here, and that is prevalent today as well. So we created a vertical called Kansas City Smartport. So we have people in our office every day. All they're really focused on is that, but working within the overall context of the region and our organization, the Animal Health Corridor. And one of the reasons why Kansas City is here is because the ag-based economy. Think about the livestock that were brought here and processed and then shipped out back east. And all the industry, all the business and services that built up around that down in the West Bottoms, the vaccine companies, the feed companies, go on and on. That's been here for generations. But just until about 15 years ago, we didn't do anything to market that to the world. So we've got 3 people in our office. That's all they're focused on. They're focused on that every day, but within the overall context of Kansas City, the greater good. And then talent recruitment. Most important thing that you all can do as a health system, and we work with you all very closely, you got to bring new talent in, all these students that are moving through your courses, how many of those do we want to keep in Kansas City? We want to keep a lot of them if we can. So it's attracting and retaining talent. So we work very closely with a number of companies, including KU, to do just that. Because I've got 4 kids. And my oldest daughter is a great example of this. She graduated from K-State 4 years ago. And she thought at the time, hey, you know what? I want to go to New York. I want to move to Chicago. I want to get out of Kansas City. And I asked her one morning, I said, Sarah, do you remember what I do for a living? She said, I know, Dad, but I think I want to do that. I said, why don't you really think about this? Let me give you a day and get you out into all of Kansas City, and just not that little silo where she grew up in. She grew up out in South Johnson County, a great place. It's where we live to this day. But that was her world. That she went off to K-State. She didn't understand the rest of what existed in Kansas City. So one Sunday, we loaded up with Route 44 Sonic drinks, and we took off. And at the end of the day, she said, Dad, I think I really want to look at trying to do something here. Because I can always fly to New York. I can fly to Chicago and see my friends there. And that's what she's done. For 4 years, she's lived here. Now, kind of hits at me because she told me last night how sad she was because she's moving to Oklahoma. She's getting married. Gonna move to Oklahoma, live with her fiance. And she said, Dad, I'm going to miss Kansas City so much. And I understand now all of this that's going on. But she's going to take Kansas City with her. And I bet you all have anecdotes like that as well. Now, this morning, we're going to really jump into the 4 C's, we'll call them. Coalition, what does that mean? I'll explain. Collaboration, that's really why we're here this morning. Commitment, and culture. Now, we have all of that within our teams. And it's cool that you all have broken up and you're sitting with people that you don't actually work with every day. But your team has to have that commitment and that culture. It has to collaborate. And how you grow that out like that. So let's start with the coalition. So I described this a little bit earlier, but this is the region that I represent. Okay? 2 states, 18 counties. The 2-state thing is really pretty big when you think about it. And historically, right along this state line, there was a lot of stuff going on. So historically, think about how can these 2 states, even to this day, want to work together? They do so in a number of ways, but our organization truly is, I think, the greatest example in the area of these 2 states working together on behalf of growing the region. Now, that's the way our customers view it. So when I come to KU, I don't know about all the colleges, I don't know about all the disciplines, I just know it's the KU health system. So when our clients, like those that we met with the other night in New York, they really don't know the difference between Kansas City, Missouri and Kansas City, Kansas, or if there are even 2 Kansas cities, or Lee's-Summit or Lenexa. Maybe they did, maybe they don't. But they know this big region. And our job, because they don't see those lines, just like your customers don't see the lines, they don't know what goes on behind the scenes, but when you're front and forward with them, it's all got to be about one. And that's the real, I think, power of the organization and how Kansas City, in many ways, is competing at such a high level today. It's by taking those lines away. Because I've always tried to do this in my career. Somebody told me this a long, long time ago. If you listen to the customer, everything simplifies. And our customers don't care where those lines are. They just don't. And those are customers who support our organization financially, our investors, and there's 250 of them, they don't care about the animal health corridor, or Smartport, or Team KC in terms of, they just want to see the result of that. And there's always, there's friction on any team. But all that's got to be moved to the side on behalf of the customer and the greater good. Because I will tell you, if we went out and tried to represent the region like that, with all these different counties and communities, all trying to make their own little way and wave and communicate, it'd be pretty confusing to the marketplace. That makes a lot less sense. So when you think about our product, it's just not lines on a map. It's environments too. So I bet within this school even, you have different environments, different feels. So you can go to one group that might feel like this, another group might feel like this. One leader leads one way, another leads another. It's the same thing with, you consider just the environment of Kansas City, again, big Kansas City, because we've got suburban and urban and even rural. But they all come together again on behalf of the one. Now I'm really proud of this. And I hope this gives me a little bit of credibility. And that our organization has been named the #1 most effective regional economic development group by who? Our customers. 2 periods in a row, 2 3-year periods in a row. So we're just not talking it. The region, talking about all these partners are doing it. And our customers are seeing that. And Jeff listed off all those companies. It's not KCAC doing that. There are multiple communities and private sector companies that get underneath this umbrella behind this banner and move forward on behalf of the region. Now, let's get into collaboration. Before I do and talk about Amazon and HQ2, any questions or thoughts or reaction thus far? Man, you all look like I used to in class.
What do your customers say when they come to Kansas City and are expecting that one large group? And they're, am I in Kansas now or am I in Missouri now? What happened?
Yeah, there's always a lot of confusion. Who's experienced this when you pick up, maybe it's a client, or maybe it's a family member or a friend who's not been to Kansas City before? And don't they always ask when they get off the plane, am I in Missouri or Kansas, and how does this work? Right?
The biggest confusion is actually when they want to book the flight.
And they want to book the flight?
Yes, they call you back and say, I cannot find Kansas City, Kansas. I can only see
Yeah, right.
And you tell them, oh, it's the same airport.
Right. So you do that too. I mean, you have to represent the region as one. So the questions that are asked to you about your particular school, whether it's audiology, or therapy, hand, whatever it might be, you got to answer questions oftentimes on behalf of the whole university, right? The whole health system here. So some of the things they say, are there 2 Kansas cities? Are we in Missouri or Kansas? They get kind of freaked out when you start bouncing around and say you're on state line and that's Kansas and this is Missouri. They go, well, we thought there would be a big river that separated. We thought there would be a lot of billboards advertising, liquor and all. It's all one. And we know that, but we take it for granted because we're here. We don't think anything about it. And you don't think anything about your day and how you work with others. But those take a step back. Some of those do that evaluate what you all are doing. So Amazon HQ2. Yeah, go ahead. John.
Speaking of airports, the other question we get is, what's with yours?
Well, we're fixing it.
But how difficult has that been in your particular position to have such an embarrassing place in such a metropolitan, centralized area that should be a hub, but isn't?
Well, John, great question, and I've got a couple of slides later on with that, but I'm going to go ahead and address it now since you asked. So it was about a year ago that we were in the middle of going out to any community organization, civic organization that would have us, and selling the need for a new single terminal. And when we started that process, and again, you talk about, we have slides about it, collaboration. When we started, the polling was 39% in favor of a new terminal. 39%. People say, oh, we love our existing airport, we love our existing terminal, and there may be some in here that love our existing situation. Well, you'll get to use it for 4 more years. So over the course of really 5 or 6 months, we built this case, and then last November, the vote came out 75 in favor, 75% in favor. So from 39 to 75%. The only way that worked was clear messaging, a highly collaborative approach, great partnership among a number of civic organizations that every day are focused on their deal, that came together on behalf of the greater good. And if there's one thing that you take from what I say today, is remembering that to step back and remember that this is about the greater good. Whether it's the region, what I do every day, whether it's my organization, I talk to our groups, our initiatives all the time, our people, said, I know yours is, your deal is really, really important, and it is important. But we got to keep in context that what we're doing is on behalf of the region. So the airport, that was a huge stumbling block. And we're moving now in the right direction. Yesterday there was a story in the Star. We're going to 39 gates. The airport, the airlines actually are going to pay for all the improvements. So it'll be about $1.3 billion. Last year at the time I thought it'd be about $1 billion. But that's good because the airlines would never commit prior to the election of saying we'll bring more flights. But that's the whole idea of this, is to bring more air service to Kansas City. And going from 35 to 39 gates is just great validation right there that the airlines want to serve this place more. So really excited. I'll get into a little bit more detail here in a second with some slides, but absolutely critical. When you talk about Amazon HQ2, everybody in here familiar with that whole process, the big second headquarters, 50,000 jobs. Basically what Amazon did was they're crowdsourcing it. First time ever in the history of economic development, one, that there's a project like this so public. So I remember vividly, it's last September the 8th, I was in St. Louis, early in the morning, getting up. First thing I do, like probably many of you, get up in the morning now, you look at your phone, I get email, Twitter stream, text, whatever's coming over in my phone, and I'm like, oh, thumbs up. And it was overnight that Amazon came out and said that we are in the market now for a second headquarters. 50,000 jobs in any community over 1 million population is invited to make a proposal. And I laid there for a little bit. I go, wow, my life is going to change drastically over the next 7 weeks, because that's how much time they gave us. So I want you to think about this with regard to collaboration and working together. So that morning, by the time noon hit, I heard, either directly or indirectly, that the state of Missouri was going to submit their own proposal. The state of Kansas was going to submit their own proposal, because both governors were out doing that. Mayor James said, hey, Kansas City, Missouri is going to do this. Then we had KCK, we're going to submit, Johnson County. And without having to go through all of that over the next really week, getting everybody, all these very different, strong, led, big personality people and organizations, say, hey, time out. Let's listen to what the customer is asking. They've asked for one proposal for each community or region over 1 million. The only chance that we really have to compete, and there's going to be a bunch of markets that will be in, is this one. And it was really a litmus test on my organization. Because we've been around for 42 years, and we've been about collaboration, we've been about all this, but and usually it's kind of in the shadows, because our clients don't like to be public. We have to name everything code names. We can't even announce their name usually until the day of. And I'll talk about that here in a second too. But this was so different. So fast forward over 7 weeks. Both states agreed to cooperate together on behalf of one Kansas City proposal. Kansas City, Missouri, Kansas City, Kansas. All the communities out in the burbs, Johnson County, Lee Summit, all came together. We started with 4 people that first day working on the response. 7 weeks later, we had 350 people from all corners of the region. Anybody really who wanted to contribute to that did. Through the website that we had created, through meetings that we had. It was pretty amazing in terms of this effort to collaborate on behalf of the greater good, but knowing that we had to have a pretty compelling proposal to put forth. So then what happened? So we put our proposal together, and I wish I had more time. I'd love to walk you through the digital platform that we created. It was an amazing process. And I will tell you that had that process not been as effective as it was for us within this region, I probably wouldn't be here today. Because it was that important for my organization and frankly for my personal leadership of that organization in the region to make sure that we put together the most compelling story, compelling business case that we could. So again, what happened? We put everything out there. The media locally, this was really, I thought, impactful for us. Usually we're pretty closed in with any sort of work that we're doing. Not very collaborative with the media, not so collaborative even with the general public. And this one was an opportunity we had to be. So the media said, hey, what are y'all doing? What about the incentives that you're putting together? What does this mean for... And I told our team, I said, you know what, we're going to open up the books. We're going to ask the Business Journal and the Star, and the head of the editorial board, specifically for the Star, came in, and the agreement was, we're going to show you everything that we've done. We're not going to get you into the incentives, because those are protected, but we'll show you generally what they're all about, but we're going to show you everything that we've done right after the platform was complete. I said, we have to agree, though, that you won't write anything unless I agree that you can write it, whatever point, because I don't want to give away any of our competitive advantages. And Colleen Nelson, who heads up the editorial board for the Star, same thing we did with Brian Caron, Business Journal, they agreed to that. And you know how tough the media can be, right? That's what I've got a junior in high school that's going to be a journalist, and she's tough. My daughter. Colleen came out at me, she said, I'm amazed. That was incredible. So for them to say that, for her to say that in the media, that gave us that stamp of, hey, some validation here about the collaborative approach. But ultimately then what happened? So this was in, I think, January, driving to work, early, listened to Bloomberg, and they started listing off the 20 finalists. Kansas City wasn't on it. KC wasn't on that list. And, it's a shot to the gut. Because I know the effort that our team, I'm just talking about the KCADC team, what they put into this, breaking down silos all across these these 25 people who were focused on things every day, they put all that to the side and got behind this. And I knew it was going to really impact them. I got in that morning, I told them, yeah, there were tears, and wow, we really put a lot in. What happened? That day at 12:30, I got a phone call from the lady named Holly Sullivan. If you follow any of this, and when they eventually announced, you'll see her name. She called me. And I said, Holly, one, I'm really bummed. Two, I didn't expect you to call me today, because there were 238 communities markets that submitted. Not all of them were 1,000,001, but 238 submitted. And she said, Tim, what you all did got the attention of our senior executives at Amazon. That is really amazing. The concern we have with Kansas City is that you're a little too far west. The population density, we have concerns about supporting 50,000 new jobs and tech talent. The ability to have enough tech talent to support these jobs. So I get all that. But I asked her, I said, well, how close were we to getting to the 20? And she paused for about 8 seconds. And I said, that close? And she said, well, I can't answer it, but just know that you all put together a heck of a deal. So we kind of bummed for a little bit. But then the response in the community, because we were so collaborative and so open and built this coalition to respond to that, we've done that. It's okay. Because we know Kansas City put forth the best effort that we could. And we knew going into that we would take whatever work that we built around this platform, which was stood up in 2.5 weeks. Typically it takes 3 months. And I know this is going to be recorded. So I'll just tell you, that was a lot of money that VML did on behalf of the region. They ate that. They invested that. So now what we're doing with that platform is we've rebuilt it, and now we've got this T-Mobile Sprint merger. Really, it's an acquisition. T-Mobile's acquiring Sprint. It's not a merger of equals. So we're rebuilding that Amazon platform, and we're painting it pink, like T-Mobile, Magenta, I guess is it. And we're getting ready to go make a pitch to John Legere and his team later on this fall about why Kansas City is the place where they ought to build out the innovation around 5G. Build these teams here and not Seattle. So everything that you do, even though you may have that short-term loss, there's got to be a long-term gain, because you got to look long. And the things that we do every day with our teams, well, it's really important that our team's got to produce this today, and we got to get this done. I really don't care about anybody else or any other team or any other college. We got to get this done. Always take a step back. This is what I tell my team. So I've learned this. I've got the scars on my back to prove it. You got to look long. You got to look long. Yesterday afternoon, one of our Dean, go ahead.
So with this experience, how difficult or how easy was it for you to accept that you did not make the top 20 for the Amazon stuff, but you felt good with yourselves that you went with the best that you got? What difference would it have made if you went separately, and in hindsight you're now thinking, oh, perhaps if we had gone together?
I tell you, it's a great question, Dean. I would say this, that there was no regret. There was no hesitation. There was no looking back Monday morning quarterbacking and saying, you know what if we had done this, what if we had done that? None of that. I didn't hear anything negative from the community. You know, the mayors, and they knew, because they had a chance to participate. And I could go on and on about all the different things that were done, but ultimately, that was the greatest validation. And as this process has moved forward, it's really not all bad that we didn't make it. Because if you followed any of this over the last month, a lot of these communities, and 14 of the 20 are east. Denver's in, I don't think they have a chance. And Denver doesn't even want to be in it anymore because of the impact. I mean, they can't provide housing for kids now, and the traffic out there is awful. Infrastructure is taxed. So Denver and LA were the only West Coast markets. Texas was thrown in, because Texas is always in. I mean, they're dynamic places. Austin, yeah, they're always in. But the rest were all east. The furthest west was Indianapolis. So this is just the top 50 markets that we compete against. But now we're looking, hey, maybe it wasn't all bad, because we would have sucked up a lot of resources moving forward into this next round. And there was a story in the Wall Street Journal just last week about companies complaining. You're shaking your head, maybe you saw this. Companies are complaining because they're going to different states or regions that are still active with the Amazon courtship, and they're being told, hey, we don't have the resources to answer your question or to deal with you as our customer because everything's gone to Amazon. And so things typically work out best if you take the best approach. Had we half-assed it, and you said, oh, we don't really have a chance, we'll just do this, we'll just kind of get by, then we would have left ourselves open to some significant criticism, and rightly so. But we never had that because everybody knew, did it. Top 50 markets. These are the places that we compete against every day. So, and there's a lot more than that we compete with, but those are the top 50. So you think about that. How can we compete with places, and every place up there you can make a case for. I bet many of you have been to most of these markets. I was talking to Jeff earlier, because my oldest son lives out in Salt Lake. And he said, oh, what a great place Salt Lake is. Guy sold it for 4 years. So if we're at the University of Oklahoma Health Sciences Center this morning, or Vanderbilt or wherever, every one of these cities that's up there, somebody could make a case like, oh, this is the best city in the country. So how do we compete with them? Because you have to have that collaborative, open approach. Because if you go into any of these other places and there's confusion, like somebody gets off the plane and says, well, where am I? And somebody says, well, you're in Kansas City, Missouri, and then tomorrow you'll be in Kansas City, Kansas, and we'll kind of get you. And we don't really like them, but because this is KCMO. That's what happens. You're laughing, but that's what happens in places that don't have a state line. Because anytime you have a line of political boundary or demarcation, you have all sorts of things that pop up. Provincialism, this is mine, and does that apply here? Yeah, it applies in our businesses. It applies in everything we do if we let it. So those are the top 50 markets. These are some of the projects that we've worked on. Jeff went through those just this week. Now this is, I don't know if you all heard about this, but Warren Buffett was in town. And they announced 500 jobs that are coming to Lenexa. It's a service center. The average salary is about $60K. So entry-level jobs all the way up through. They evaluated markets across the United States over 2 years. 2 years it took them to make a decision that Kansas City and Lenexa is the place they wanted to be. One of the things they told us, the CEO told me personally, and that's Warren Buffett. I'm trying to steal Warren's wallet there.
How'd that work out for you?
I still have mine. And his was a lot fatter than mine. The CEO told me, he said, hey, we loved when we came into Kansas City, started the evaluation, his team had told him this, that it was easy. Because they looked at buildings and communities across the region. They didn't have to worry about the silos and the lines. And we've got 500 jobs, and there's more announcements coming. And we're talking about, this is a great time to be doing what we're doing. And Kansas City is showing really well to a lot of companies. Commitment. So, I love this because it really describes, I believe, my team. And I bet it describes you all too. and how you're committed to your team, to your department, to your school, to the whole system, to the region. Little example, we have a new guy on our team. He's been there about 7 months. And he's had to learn that our culture and our commitment is a little different from just maybe some other places. That it's full on. And there's challenges that we all have, maintaining balance with our families and everything. That's all there, but there's commitment. He's working on a big manufacturing project. He went to a wedding in Wales 2 weeks ago, right in the middle of a project that he's leading. And before he left, he said, well, somebody could be able to work my project. And I said, I'm sorry, this is your project. We'll support you how we can, but you've got to be the line, the link to your client. Because he trusts you. You built that relationship. And he said, okay, I got it. So over the course of the week, I'm sure in between pints of beer in Cardiff, he communicated verbally, email, text, because it's a really important time frame for this manufacturer to make a decision. He never told his client that he was in Wales. Every time the client reached out to him, Jim answered in whatever time it was, got back to him within a reasonable period of time, and the client was in town the week after Jim got back. And he said, hey, Jim did a great job last week. He was really on it. I said, yeah, did you know that he was in the UK? And he looked at me and said, no, he never said. I said, yeah, he was. So the elevation of Jim and our organization went up like that. Now, I'm not asking or saying that everybody on vacation should do that, but that's the commitment that we're talking about. With our culture, it's a commitment to making sure that the customer is taken care of. And you just can't talk it. You gotta walk it. We talked about this earlier, but the whole better KCI, 75% voter approval. See all those logos there? When we started, there were 2 logos on that. And that doesn't even begin to take into account all the organizations, civic and business, that were supportive and active in the better KCI. Icelandair. Anybody here gone to Europe yet? Have you flown out?
Last week.
Did you like it?
Yeah, it's spartan in terms of service, but it got me there without a layover in Newark. So.
Exactly. That's the whole deal. So Icelandair, this is another great example of collaboration that we built over time with the aviation department city, because Icelandair didn't have any plans to put new nonstop flights from Kansas City to Europe in place this season. But they approached the head of route management out at KCI, said, hey, we were here a year ago, we loved Kansas City. We put together a heck of a presentation for them a year ago, but they didn't win the right time. So I got a plane. I can move off a route that's currently Reykjavik to Portland, and I can put it here. What can we do to get that done? So making that happen, moving quickly. So for the first time in history of Kansas City, we have nonstop transatlantic flight. And other airlines will look very carefully and closely at how this works out for Icelandair. But we've gone how many decades without direct transatlantic service? And Icelandair was willing to take a chance. And our organization and others have backstopped up to a certain amount their first year loss. So it's really important for all of you to consider going to Europe this summer. Fly Icelandair. It's the lowest part, but it gets you there, and you don't have to go through Newark. That's the best sales in.
That could be a great motto.
That's right. Newark, you had a question, sir.
So, you remember back in the day, you had Midwest Airlines here?
Yeah, Midwest Airlines.
It was awesome because we could fly anywhere direct, anywhere, any major city. With the new airport coming in force, are they having discussions with any major airline to say, are they having any major discussions with any of the airlines to say, can we at least have a smaller hub here? Maybe Delta, but I love Delta. But just, I think, any back in the days, Midwest Airlines used to be here. It was the most amazing airline, and they flew everywhere you wanted to go in the United States. And we would actually plan our vacations just around where they flew.
They were a great airline, and they were very supportive of the community, but they don't fly anymore. So the short answer to that is the market is going to determine what happens with that. But going from 35 gates to 39, again, last year we were talking about just 35 gates. Now the airlines have said, we'll pay for 39 gates because we believe Kansas City can support that. Now, the airline industry has changed so much. There's not a lot of these hub and spoke systems anymore. Southwest is, they have the most flights here. It's about 50% of the market share. But what I would see happening is, and you think back over the last 4 or 5 decades, Kansas City's geographic location, you look at how Minneapolis has grown to the north. They're a huge Delta hub. Before that was Northwest Orient. They got lucky. Pittsburgh, on the other hand, was a huge U.S. Air hub. U.S. Air isn't around anymore. Look just down I-70. Remember when TWA hubbed out of St. Louis? And then American bought TWA, and American promised, oh, we're going to make St. Louis our hub. St. Louis has about the same air service and connections, a little more extensive than Kansas City now. So the whole name of the game, in my opinion, is being able to provide, one, a real cost-effective solution for the airlines to want to fly here, and then drive that market interest. And the airlines will do it. Delta will put more flights in here if we're flying it. Lufthansa or maybe Condor will add service direct to Germany if Icelandair does well. But for so long, that terminal out there, those terminals held us back because the airlines couldn't expand. But we're past that now. So we'll have a new terminal, and that will help us. But whether or not it's going to be a hub, it's wishful thinking. Yes, ma'am.
So one of my questions is why we didn't go for something bigger. We have more than 39 gates now.
So I don't understand why we didn't try to compete and say, look, nobody wants to fly through Chicago. It's a nightmare. They have terrible weather. Half the time you go there, your flight is delayed. Why did we not think, gee, we're in a great place, good traffic, we can compete with Chicago?
Well,
Is that possible?
it's a great question. The airlines ultimately are the ones who are going to decide. And so the airlines are going to say, where do we want to put our flights? And I know all this is being taped. So I'd ask you not to send this out, don't tweet this. But I would tell you that the airlines are looking really closely at Kansas City with the new terminal. Because one, the cost basis to fly in and out of here is a lot less expensive than Chicago Midway for Southwest, for example. And why wouldn't they put more flights in to move people across the country, whether it's Delta or most likely it's going to be Southwest, okay? Because Southwest pays several dollars more to operate out of St. Louis and several dollars more than that to operate out of Midway than they do Kansas City. But they weren't going to operate in our current condition or situation. So moving forward, going from 35 to 39 gates, it's only 4 gates. But the efficiency that these airlines now apply to moving airplanes through the gates is so much better than it was even 5-10 years ago. So Dallas Love Field, which has a new terminal, if you've flown in and out of there, beautiful. That'll be similar to what we have here. They have about 23 gates. So it's all about being able to move the airplanes through more efficiently so they can turn them quicker. And so we'll have, 39 gates. That says a lot. The airlines are pretty bullish on Kansas City and growing that way. Yeah.
That's not, they said 42 days on the.
It could be expanded to 42, so they're committing to 39 now and expanding.
but they've delayed the opening.
Yes.
It's not
By
that
year.
I'm working for Icelandair, but another extreme advantage I've had is that the round trip airfare between, when I flew into and out of Zurich both ways, was $600 cheaper than Delta's best fare.
Absolutely.
And I also understand one of the reasons they're limited to the season that they are is because they're delivering a lot of salmon to American restaurants and grocery stores. And so many of those planes coming back are loaded with fish.
Absolutely.
So John, that, you could be your carry-on.
That's right. I was just happy the air conditioning didn't go out.
You know, and John makes a really good point, you know, about Icelandair. So, one, the fares are very competitive, and they're going to initiate another fare sale coming up in July, so watch for that. So you can go anywhere pretty much in Europe, $639 round trip. Now, the thing is this, and you experienced it, coming back typically through Newark or Philadelphia or Chicago O'Hare, after you've been in Europe, and you fly and you have to change planes, you clear customs there, and you have to recheck your bags, go back onto a domestic flight, get to Kansas City, and you get your baggage. You're like, oh my God. So I flew on the inaugural flight to Iceland about a month ago, 5 weeks ago. It was so cool coming back from there and clearing customs here. So it was easy. You got off the plane, you cleared customs, you're out in your car, and you're home. We have to support this as Kansas City. We have to support this route. Now, it's 3 times a week there, 3 times back. We want to get them to 5 days a week next season. They're only flying through the end of September. But book your flight. I'm just not trying to be glib about it. Book your flights. Because it's easy, and just go to Iceland. I'm taking the whole family back to Iceland in the middle of July. It was amazing. We're just going to go for 4 days because you can do it now. It's a 6-hour flight, 6.5 hours there, and about 7 hours back. Depends on the wind. Yes.
Tim, we had a conference that was here in town this weekend from people all over the United States, standardized patient simulation, and they really wanted to understand, what's the difference? They really have a hard time getting their head around, Kansas City, Kansas, and Kansas City, Missouri, and we said, it's really kind of the whole metropolitan area. They just really couldn't get their heads around that. So I'm thinking about the way that you have brought together all those communities for the Amazon project, and I remember feeling like when I heard that we were competing, Wichita, St. Louis, and all of us were somehow competing separately for this. It makes you feel, it doesn't give you a very good feeling as a Kansas Citian, I think, to feel that we're sort of competing with our neighbors. And so, good for you and the Area Development Council for bringing those people together, because even clearly you made an impression with Amazon, and clearly you positioned this community to take on some of those projects in the future. Can you talk a little bit about, how you see that really benefiting you? Because I think that was a pivotal moment for the Area Development Council, that if you hadn't been able to bring those people together, our culture would have really been different into the future.
Yeah. So, great question and observation. I appreciate that. And I could go on and on about Amazon, but we were actually working with St. Louis and had talked to Omaha and Wichita because they weren't in, how they were going to support Kansas City. And Kansas City and St. Louis were collaborating through the state of Missouri on the whole Hyperloop concept, which was part of the proposal. So it got really, really big. But again, think about KCI, having been around now for 42 years. And most of our work is done under the cloak of secrecy, the cone of silence, because our customers don't want their names out. That's why I have all these project names. To your point, what these companies now will do, they'll take Amazon as kind of their cue now. They're going to take a different approach. But our community partners and our private sector partners, having seen that this region does in fact collaborate, cooperate, has a good culture in terms of being able to apply that for something like Amazon HQ2, they always knew it. Again, we've been around for 42 years. But this was so public. Now they just feel so good about it. I mean, this deal that we announced earlier this week with Geico and Lenaxa, there's going to be a big project that's going to announce on Monday in Lee's Summit. There's going to be one out in the Northland. And I'm on Twitter because my team said, hey, you got to be on Twitter. So yeah, all the retweets and likes on that Warren Buffett photo from KCK, from Lee's Summit, from KCMO, saying, hey, this is really good for the region. And our customers, again, see that. So turning that back to you. So when you leave here and go, okay, well, I heard about Kansas City, great, and a lot of good things, what does that really matter to me? How am I going to collaborate better with the person who maybe office is right next door or has the workstation next to me? How am I going to collaborate better with them? Start there. Then what about my department? Then what about the school? And keeping in mind that, hey, I don't know all this. I know the health system does a lot of different stuff. I've been in orthopedics, I've been in audiology, I've been in physical rehab, I've done all this. Got a heart doctor here, like a bionic man. Knee surgery last week. But I don't know how all that works. All I want is to be able to come here and have my ailment taken care of. And I want that to be done in a way that is easy, seamless, and what I see, everything is tranquil and works. Now I know underneath the surface, a lot of stuff that's happening that's got to happen. Remember that you're thinking about delivering to the greater good. All these people across the country that come to KU, not just our region. And how can you take all those lines away within your areas, your schools, your university system, and make it so that somebody comes in and says, that's just one KU. Because when they come to Kansas City, we want them to leave thinking, that's just one Kansas City. But all the stuff that, and even just organizationally again. But I'll go back today, and there's all sorts of stuff that's going to be going on. This is more important, and my deal is more important, Tim, and I need resources here, and she doesn't need those resources. Hear it every day. I say to them, remember, it's about all that outside of here. For our investors, how we work with our community partners. Same thing that you all do.
So, sitting here listening to you talk, our department specifically is working on something that I think very much falls in line with this collaboration and kind of breaking down some barriers with the broader health system. And what have you found to be the most effective tool for getting somebody on board to think about dropping those barriers? Or like, is it we're all in it together? Is it this is what I can bring to you? What is
success. That's really the best way to drop the lines and the fiefdoms and being provincial, is having success and sharing success. And I think it's really important. It's one thing that we've tried to do over the last 3 years. Is one of the complaints that I had from our team is that, we do all this, but we never take any time to celebrate it. We want, work is work. It's the reason why it's called work. We all get that. But we spend so much of our time, and if I'm asking our team and one of our senior leaders to take a lot of his time away from being in Wales and running around at a wedding to deliver on behalf of a client, then I've got to deliver something for him and his family that's over and above what the expectation is. And that's what you all have to think about too. How can we celebrate your successes? Just not coming in every day at 8 o'clock and leaving at 5. So we've done some really fun stuff. Like last week, it was Employee Appreciation Week. I'd seen that somewhere. So I asked our COO, I said, let's have a shaved ice cream truck come by at 2 o'clock. And we'll surprise everybody after lunch and say, we got a big team meeting. We're just going to go down for shaved ice. So the Kona truck pulled up outside Union Station. And it's a little thing like that, 30 minutes. But I said, you guys are killing it. You're killing it on behalf of the region, all the success, little things like that. And I could go on. But stopping and taking account and not just going, okay, here I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing that. It's a commitment. And it's not for everybody. You're going to work at Southwest Airlines? I mean, they're all in, customer service is all. That's what I want with my organization. People talk about that all the time. Well, we're about the customer, that's all good. But when the chips are down, do you deliver that way? But more than any other customer outside these walls, your most important customers are in this room. Probably the most important customers are the ones that aren't in this room, that could be here today. Everybody's busy and all that, and I get it. But your eternal customers, that's the most important constituency any of us have. I don't care if you're running an ice cream store or a multi-billion-dollar endeavor like this, or a regional economic development group of 25 people. Your most important customers are those internally. Culture, just real quick, and I'll wrap and I'll answer any questions, and you can run me out whenever you want. What really separates, not even separate, that's the wrong word, what distinguishes our product, not just making it different. People say, well, what sets us apart? What makes us different? Let's not be different. Every place is different. I go back to those 50 cities on the map. Oh, they're all different. But what truly distinguishes Kansas City as a region from all these other places that we compete against? All these places where people like my daughter could move to, or move away from, or come back to, or move businesses to, like Chicago. What distinguishes it? And the same thing applies here. You've got to have an amazing culture. You've got to be committed. You've got to be collaborative within reason. I'm not talking about sitting around and holding hands. I'm talking about being collaborative because it benefits the customer. Then ultimately you got to love it. You hear, or you watch these commercials, and you read all about, I'm passionate about Katie, maybe, or I'm passionate about KCI, or I'm passionate about Kansas City. That's all true. But passion is fleeting. It's hard to be passionate forever. The root of passion, or that next step of passion, is love. And I don't even get all goofy and gooey on a Friday morning, but that's really what separates, distinguishes our organization, our region, how we represent it, is you gotta love it. You should love, and I'm sure you do, but if you have questions about whether or not you should love this place because of what you're doing to help so many people. And you all know that, but I don't know how often you think about it. Because why would you? You come in every day, you do your thing. Remind yourself that you're having such a huge impact on our region. You have wonderful outcomes to your work. You love it. That distinguishes you. That distinguishes your organization. That distinguishes the work that we put into our region. Because at the end of the day, oftentimes, it comes down to 3 great regions in the country. Charlie's got a friend that works in Raleigh. Raleigh's a great place. Yeah, Raleigh, Kansas City, let's just say Salt Lake, where my son. Those are all 3 great places. So why would a company decide to go to one of the 3? Well, talent's always going to be there, real estate availability, all sorts of things. But at the end, if they believe that the process that they went through was more efficient, they have greater confidence in the team that they worked with, just like the team that you all are and that you support, that team is just just distinguishes itself just by that much. That process, I feel more comfortable and confident that I've got a better chance of winning. And to be confident and comfortable, competent in all those things, you gotta love what you do. And having love for your product, having love, in our case, for Kansas City, we all share that love. You're all out every day talking about it, one way or another. That is a great distinguishing component of any decision. Questions, reaction?
I don't have a question about that, but is there any company or is there any organization that we, sorry, thank you, that we don't want to have come here? I mean, is there anything that, you know, is there anybody you're like, no, you are just so counter to our culture here, or is that just, is everybody on the table?
You are being recorded.
That's a really good question. You know, one thing that comes up, somebody will say maybe, well, gosh, we've got so many of this type of company. You know, we don't have enough talent, you know, or you're taking away from my company, and I can't get enough people here, and why do we need, you know, another hospital built out at 150th and Metcalf or wherever? Or why do we need another such and such come in? I always answer with the market's going to decide. Let the market decide. Geico evaluated a bunch of different places. You know, our unemployment rate's like 3.6 for the region, I think. It's tight everywhere. But they came in and said, you know, because of the power of our brand, we're going to be able to attract who we want. And they're smart. I mean, you see their commercials, how sharp, and having Warren Buffett here. I mean, my God, he's a showman. And the media was there just tripping over themselves. And it was all about their strategy to position this center to attract talent and retain talent. It was brilliant. More companies should embrace that approach. But to answer your question, when I started my career a long time ago, 30 plus years ago, down in Texas, we worked on a tract in a prison. I'll never do that again. That's probably one we wouldn't go after. Yeah, so.
You know, I know it's the case that a huge attraction for startups and new companies is a strong educational system in the area, and especially higher education, because they can mine the talent from universities, and they all want their kids to have a good education. Kansas has received considerably negative attention in recent years for the cuts to education, and especially higher education system. How much of a factor has that been at all in attracting companies like Amazon, et cetera, where we really don't have the talent to a certain degree because the strength of our universities has been eroded?
Yeah, I mean, I just turned off the mic, so hopefully everybody can hear me okay. I'll get it done if there were.
It won't be recorded.
Okay. That's good. On this answer, or maybe not. You know, funding for higher education, funding for education is obviously, I'll be Captain Obvious here, is very, very important for what we do. Companies ask that question. They look at all the stats, all the demographics, all the information before they even get here. That's one thing that's really different about our business today, and you'd expect this than it was even a decade ago, is that by the time the client and his or her representative gets to us, they already pretty much know about us. So now they're just looking to confirm what they found out through their own research, because it's all out there. I mean, there's no hiding. So when there's issues with funding for higher education, or there's this or that, and we've got a big budget deficit in Topeka, or issues in Jeff City, all that's there. So I would say to you, to try to be as specific as I can, John, is that it's really important. There's a lot of people that have to come together in a collaborative fashion to impact that. It's just not economic development. It's everybody. It's just not you all with your lobbyists saying, hey, we need this for these reasons. It's got to be all of it. But ultimately, it's about the outcomes. And are we developing and putting into the marketplace, into the labor force here, kids people who go back to school that are my age and get and retrain, are they competitive in a global marketplace? And things are changing so dramatically with regard to workforce development and how we fund this and what we look at there. It is going to be drastically different, the way training is delivered, the way our kids are educated. That was one of the biggest, I guess, sort of new or novel approaches that we took on the Amazon deal, was that we knew going into it that we couldn't stand up and compete from just a higher education and across the board educational standpoint with some of the other markets in the country. You think about Pittsburgh with Carnegie Mellon, you think about all these giant research universities that are anchors for those cities. Columbus, Ohio with Ohio State, UT and Austin. So our approach was that we, through the work of the Kauffman Foundation, which is obviously an amazing asset that we have in our region, that we are rethinking, re-engineering education and how it's delivered at the kids from pre-K all the way up. And that was our approach. So you look at what's going on with the CAPS program. Some of you, I'm sure, are really familiar with that, and how different that is than it was. All the funding for that, but it's got to be funding sources that's just not from the public side. But that really resonated. That approach resonated quite well with Amazon, and that what's happening in Kansas City and how we're educating and training the workforce. They're doing this, trying to do it in a lot of places in the country, but because we have Kauffman here, gives us a real advantage. It's a long way to answer it. It's really important. There seems to now be some stability and some maybe some more rational thinking in Topeka around that. Certainly on the Missouri side, things have stabilized. The new governor was in town a couple of weeks ago, and Governor Greitens was, really trashed the whole conservatory with UMKC. So that's an investment on behalf of the state of Missouri. It's a $50 million investment. The value of that conservatory is going to be well past that in a number of different areas. That'll happen. So I see that after a period of some relative instability in both state houses, any different or a number of reasons, that there's some stability and we're moving forward, and I'm excited about that.
So it's interesting because I am moving next week to Florida, and
have we changed your mind, Gordon?
I honestly, I've dragged my heels for 2 years. My spouse took a job down there 2 years, and I've literally dragged my heels for the last 2 years to go. And it's interesting because my spouse used to run an industry here and moved it there, and then was looking for a new location. Kansas City, and it was another city, was in the runnings for the place of this center that they were going to build. And I was, of course, using Kansas City because then I didn't have to move. It didn't get going here. Went somewhere else because of logistics, shipping, and things like that. The international piece, which makes sense. But afterwards, it's interesting because he's kicking himself and saying, "I wish I would have gone to Kansas City because of the workforce." And so I don't know how to translate that because the area that he worked at has a workforce, but he said that the workforce that here was so much different to work with. And I think it's about the people. And now looking at where we're moving, there is a difference with the people in the Midwest. There is a dedication. There is a drive. And not to say that other cities don't have that, but I don't know how to articulate that. But I can speak from experience because of what he's going through with that. And I think to build on the education piece, we have major, universities and opportunities here. And I love that we're working with a K because I think that's where we have this gap between high school and college and these skills, soft, employable skills that are missing.
Skills gap.
Yes, it's just employable skills. And I think focusing on those employable skills is wonderful. But I think also, too, the partnerships that we can develop with the employers, the academic employer partnerships, those have been so key for our department. But I think that we need to leverage it as a community and saying, how can we have not like a relationship, but specific partnerships that the employers help sponsor, because academia needs more sponsoring, these opportunities to help sponsor these kids to get from K through 12 and K-12 to college, community college, and the college into the workforce. Because what's happening is these next generation, millennials and generation Z now or whatever, we notice the difference in academia. We know the difference. And what's interesting in the workforce is the workforce is changing how they recruit. They're changing how they retain. And so one of the things that we need to be able to do is partner with those workforces to say, what do you need? How can we change what we're doing here to make sure that when they get to you, they're ready and prepared? Because that's been, I think, the biggest gap. And we've already got the most wonderful thing going. And I can, like I said, from my partner's experience, we have the people here. And so it's now lining up those pipelines so that they can get to the employers. And I think that's a huge sale for Kansas City. If we can go to companies and say, this is what we can do. And if you come to this industry, we can actually work with the universities and partner with them to help reinforce skills that are specific to yours, but we already have these employable skills taken care of.
Right. No, it's you've identified an area that a lot of different private sector and working with the public sector and higher education and education throughout the whole continuum to make Kansas City more effective as a competitive option for any company. But if every question that ever starts about locating in any region is about talent. And the last question that they ask before they make a decision is, can we really get this talent here? Can you help me sustain my workforce? Can you help me grow it through any number of these regions? So our Team KC initiative is all about that. Basically what they do is they extend the staffing and recruitment arms of, for example, KU, because you all are very involved with that. So KU, basically, a lot of companies and organizations in town some years ago said, hey, we're really challenged because we can sell the health system really, really effectively, but we have a challenge selling Kansas City. How can you help us do that? So we basically extended their efforts, and we sell Kansas City for a number of different companies and organizations like yours, while you all can focus on selling the advantages of your organization. And there's so many things I could talk about without time about what's going on with regard to workforce development, addressing the skills gap. Because it's for us to compete and win, you got to have that. It's got to be about talent. It's got to be about workforce. I'm sorry that you're leaving. Go forward. But
we are too. We are very sorry.
I've got a couple of questions back here.
Real quickly, and I think we have to wrap up pretty soon because we have to move on to the debriefing. But I did want to say thank you, Tim. This has been great. It's been very provocative in thought, and I think the whole KC kind of pride, which we all probably know and experience and feel in some capacity, is really neat and something that's distinct and we all feel. But I think about our school, and I'm kind of bringing it back home a little bit, is people ask me often why I love my job, because I work long hours often, and I tell them, well, it's because of the people I work with, and I say that specifically addressing it with my department colleagues and so forth, because they're excellent at what they do. But I also have had a chance to work with a lot of folks in here through interprofessional things and just through leadership roles and stuff, and I feel the same way about all the people in the other departments as well, and I see all these amazing departments that have tremendous talent, amazing capacity, just phenomenal people as a whole, and I think I would love for the SHP to have the same pride that we have for the KC pride, And I must say, it's not something I felt strongly, just being honest and transparent for the past 12 years that I've been here. But I do feel like there's such amazing potential for our school to really elevate, to feel that same sense of pride. I think we feel that about our departments, and we strive hard to make that true. But I really like the idea of kind of how this could prompt us to have that same kind of pride for our school. And I'm guessing, and I would be curious to hear your thoughts on this, but if that pride happens, I think the collaboration will follow. And I think it's probably a two-way street, but I wonder how much that could impact how we engage one another across our departments and also at the school. So just some thoughts that were...
Steve, very insightful. Now that I'm off and I'm not being recorded, I'll tell you this.
I'll just make sure.
Do that for me. In my organization,